In the depths of ancient Rome, a peculiar tradition marked the greatest moments of triumph. Consider this scenario. A victorious general parades through the streets, crowned with laurels, celebrated as a living god. But behind him stands a slave, whispering words that would seem strange in such a moment of glory. Memento mori. Remember, you are mortal. Yet these same Romans built one of history's most confident and enduring civilizations. Their secret? A philosophy we now call Stoicism. A philosophy that didn't just teach confidence, but built it from the ground up. Today, we're going to explore 12 Stoic habits that will help you develop unshakable confidence. Not the shallow, Instagram-perfect kind of confidence, but the deep, lasting kind that withstands life's greatest challenges. The type of confidence that doesn't crack under pressure, but grows stronger with every obstacle. Before we start, remember this. True confidence isn't about being better than others. It's about being better than your previous self. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his private journals, waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. Let's begin with our first habit. Stop comparing yourself to others. You know that feeling when you're scrolling through social media and suddenly your accomplishments seem meaningless. There's an ancient Japanese concept called wabi-sabi that embraces imperfection as beauty. It perfectly aligns with what Epictetus taught about comparison. He said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Let me share a story from ancient China. A master archer named Kititze was renowned for his perfect shots. One day, a young archer challenged him to a contest. The young man shot arrows while performing acrobatics, landing each shot perfectly. When asked to match this feat, Kititze simply said, "I do not compete with others. I compete only with myself." This simple response carries more wisdom than 1,000 perfect shots. In our modern world, we're constantly bombarded with opportunities for comparison. But the truth is, whenever you compare yourself to others, you're comparing your behind-the-scenes footage to someone else's highlight reel. Your journey is unique, and that's your power. Moving to our second habit, surround yourself with positive people. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest philosophers, wrote to a friend, "Associate with people who make you better." Think about that for a moment. In ancient Arabian culture, there's a saying, "Tell me who you walk with, and I'll tell you who you are." This isn't just ancient wisdom, it's practical psychology. Consider the story of Zaid, a merchant from medieval Baghdad. When his business failed, instead of seeking comfort among fellow failed merchants, he spent his days in the booming marketplace, learning, observing, and gradually rebuilding his confidence through positive associations. Within a year, he restored his business and exceeded his previous success. Your environment shapes you more than you might realize. Just as a garden can't flourish in poor soil, your confidence can't grow in toxic surroundings. Look around you right now. Are the people in your life building you up or breaking you down? Our third habit is one that often surprises people. Take care of your body. Despite being the most powerful man in the world, Marcus Aurelius never forgot to emphasize the connection between physical and mental strength. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, he wrote. But he also understood that the body houses these thoughts. In ancient Sparta, physical training wasn't just about preparing for battle. It was about building unshakable confidence. But here's what most people miss. It wasn't about achieving perfect bodies. It was about proving to yourself day after day that you can push through discomfort. There's a beautiful story from Zen tradition about a monk who wanted to achieve enlightenment. His master told him to first tend to the temple garden for a year. The monk worked physically every day, and his anxiety about enlightenment slowly faded. His body grew stronger, and with it, his mind grew clearer. When the year was up, he realized he had found what he was looking for, not through meditation, but through the simple act of physical care. You don't need to become a warrior or a monk. Start small. A daily walk, stretching in the morning, eating foods that fuel rather than drain you. Your body is the only permanent home you have in this world. When you care for it, you send a powerful message to your subconscious. I am worth taking care of. As we move to our fourth habit, be kind to yourself and remember that confidence isn't built in a day. The Stoics understood something profound about self-compassion. Contrary to popular belief, they weren't cold or unfeeling. They were realistic about human nature. There's an ancient Middle Eastern parable about two wolves. One represents self-criticism and doubt, the other self-compassion and growth. A young person asks their grandfather which wolf wins. The elder replies, the one you feed. This simple story carries a profound truth about self-kindness. Think of confidence like a garden. You can't scold a flower into blooming. You nurture it, give it what it needs, and trust it. When you make a mistake, and you will, we all do, treat yourself like you would a dear friend. Would you call them worthless? Would you define them by their failures? Of course not. Extending this same kindness to yourself isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And now pause for a moment. Think about how you've spoken to yourself today. Were you a harsh critic or a supportive friend? Remember, every moment is a chance to choose to feed the right wolf again. Our fifth habit builds naturally from self-kindness. Practice positive self-talk. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He wasn't just sharing philosophy. He was revealing a timeless truth about human psychology. Let me share a story from ancient Egypt. There was a scribe named Amenemhat who was tasked with recording the pharaoh's great deeds. Before touching his tools, he would recite each day, "My hands are skilled, my mind is sharp, my work serves the ages." This wasn't mere vanity, it was programming. His work became so precise and beautiful that examples still survive today, over 3,000 years later. Think of your mind as an ancient garden. Every thought is a seed. What are you planting? When you wake up, do you immediately think of all the ways you might fail today? Or do you, like Amenemhat, remind yourself of your capabilities? The words you whisper to yourself are more powerful than others. In feudal Japan, samurai warriors practiced something called kuji-kiri, a ritual of 9 positive affirmations combined with hand gestures. Before facing any challenge, they would remind themselves of their strength, wisdom, and connection to something greater than themselves. Their confidence didn't come from their swords, but from their minds. Here's a practical technique. Every time you face a mirror today, pause for 3 seconds and give yourself one genuine compliment, not about your appearance, but about your character, your efforts, and your growth. It might feel strange at first. Most powerful medicines do. Moving to our 6th habit, face your fears. The Stoic philosopher Seneca said something remarkable about fear. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. This brings to mind an ancient Persian tale about a merchant who saw death in the marketplace of Baghdad. Terrified, he fled to Samarra. Later, death spoke to his friend. "I was surprised to see your friend in Baghdad, for I have an appointment with him tomorrow in Samarra." The moral? Often running from our fears leads us straight to them. Consider the story of Zheng Tian, a Chinese diplomat from the Han Dynasty. Sent on a mission to unknown lands, he was captured, imprisoned, and escaped, only to return to those same dangerous territories voluntarily. Why? because he understood that confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's the triumph over it. His journeys eventually opened the Silk Road, changing the course of human history. The Stoics practiced something called premeditation of evils, deliberately visualizing their fears. But they understood the crucial part. You don't face your fears to eliminate them. You face them to prove to yourself that you can handle them. Start small. Afraid of public speaking? Start by voicing your opinion in a small group. Afraid of failure? Take on a project where failure won't devastate you. Remember, courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and moving forward anyway. As an ancient Arabic proverb states, fear is a companion that walks beside the brave. Our seventh habit might surprise you. Do things you're good at. You might think, isn't that just hiding in my comfort zone? But there's profound wisdom here. The Greek philosopher Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, human flourishing that comes from exercising our natural excellences. Let me share a story from Nordic tradition. There was a young Viking who spent years trying to master the sword. Because all his friends were swordsmen, he failed constantly, his confidence eroding with each defeat. One day he picked up a bow and everything changed. His natural archery talent made him a warrior and a legend. The moral? Sometimes confidence comes not from forcing yourself into a mold, but from recognizing and embracing your natural strengths. Think of confidence like a fire. Yes, you need to challenge yourself with new fuel, but you also need an intense core flame. That core comes from doing what you're naturally good at. The Japanese concept of ikigai teaches us to find the intersection of what we're good at, what we love, what the world needs, and what can sustain us. When you regularly engage in activities that showcase your strengths, you build what psychologists call a success bank, a reservoir of positive experiences you can draw from when facing new challenges. A master calligrapher in ancient China didn't start each day questioning his ability to write. He knew he could write beautifully. This gave him the confidence to tackle other challenges. Here's what you can do. Make a list of 5 things you're naturally good at. They don't have to be impressive to others. Maybe you're good at making people feel comfortable, organizing spaces, or solving puzzles. Do at least one of these things each day. It's not about proving anything to anyone else. It's about reminding yourself of your innate capabilities. Remember what Epictetus said. First, say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. When you regularly engage with your strengths, you're not just doing, you're becoming. You're building a foundation of confidence based on real evidence of your capabilities. Think of it like an ancient temple. You're laying another stone in its foundation every time you exercise strength. Over time, these stones create something unshakable. Not because there are no weaknesses, but because the foundation is strong enough to support growth in any direction. Let's explore our 8th habit. Learn to accept criticism gracefully. A young artist in ancient Persia who brought his work to a master calligrapher. The master looked at it and said, "This is poor work." Most would have been crushed, but this artist asked, "Where can I improve?" 20 years later, his name was Mir Emad, and his works now grace the world's finest museums. The difference wasn't in the criticism he received, but in how he received it. Epictetus taught us something profound about criticism. He said, "If someone tells you that you know nothing and you are not disturbed, then you have made the first step toward wisdom." Think about that. The power isn't in the words thrown at you, but in your response to them. It's like the ancient Chinese martial art of Tai Chi. Instead of blocking force, you learn to redirect it. There's a beautiful story from medieval Japan about a tea master named Senno Rikyu. A samurai, offended by Rikyu's critique of his tea ceremony, challenged him to a duel. Rikyū accepted but asked to perform one last tea ceremony. During the ceremony, he performed each movement with such grace and mastery that the samurai watching realized the critique had been a gift, not an insult. He bowed and withdrew his challenge. When someone criticizes you, pause for 3 breaths. In the first breath, acknowledge the emotional sting. In the second breath, ask yourself, is there something here I can learn? In the third breath, remember that criticism often says more about the giver than the receiver. This simple practice can transform criticism from a confidence destroyer to a confidence builder. Moving to our 9th habit, set realistic goals. The Stoics understood something crucial about human psychology. We need progress to feel confident, but that progress must be achievable. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journals, "Progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily." Let me share an ancient tale from the African kingdom of Mali. A griot, a storyteller, named Jabari, wanted to memorize all the stories of his people, thousands of them. His teacher gave him wise advice. Don't try to swallow the ocean. Start with a cup of water each day. Jabari began learning one story each morning. 10 years later, he became one of the most celebrated griots in Mali's history. His confidence came not from the magnitude of his achievement, but from the consistent attainment of small, realistic goals. Think of confidence as building a pyramid. The ancient Egyptians didn't start with the capstone. They started with a solid foundation and added one perfectly cut block at a time. When you set realistic goals, you're cutting those blocks to size. Too big and they won't fit. Too small and the structure won't rise. Here's a powerful technique from Zen tradition, the 1-degree shift. Instead of trying to transform your life overnight, focus on improving by just 1 degree each day. Want to become more confident in public speaking? Don't start with a TED Talk. Start by speaking up once in a small meeting. Want to write a book? Don't start with a trilogy. Start with 1 page a day. The Stoics had a practice called progressive overload, gradually increasing challenges while staying within realistic bounds. Think of the ancient Greek wrestler Milo, who built his legendary strength by carrying a growing calf every day until it became a bull. His weight increased gradually, and his body adapted naturally. Our 10th habit takes us deeper. Challenge negative thoughts. In ancient India, there was a practice called Pratipaksha Bhavana, the art of replacing negative thoughts with positive ones, but not in a superficial, wishful thinking way. Instead, it was about questioning the very foundation of our negative assumptions. Consider this story from Sufi tradition. A wise woman was known for her unshakable confidence. When asked about her secret, she said, "Each morning I meet my 2 great teachers, doubt and fear. I ask them, 'What do you have to teach me today?' Then I listen, learn, and let them go." She understood that negative thoughts aren't enemies to be vanquished, but messengers carrying noteworthy information. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Imagine you're giving a presentation and someone yawns. The negative thought says, "I'm boring everyone." The Stoic response would be to question this. Are they tired from staying up late? Did they just finish a heavy lunch? Is my interpretation based on evidence or insecurity? Here's a practical technique I call the ancient court of reason. When a negative thought arises, put it on trial. What's the evidence for this thought? What's the evidence against it? If a friend were in my situation, what would I tell them? What would Marcus Aurelius say about this? This habit becomes particularly powerful when combined with understanding cognitive distortions, those mental traps that ancient philosophers recognized long before modern psychology named them. Catastrophizing. The Stoics had an antidote, premeditatio malorum. preparing for difficulties while maintaining perspective. Let me share another story, this time from ancient China. A pottery master was known for creating perfect vessels. When asked about his secret, he said, "I used to see every imperfection as a failure. Now I see each one as a question. What can this teach me about my craft?" His confidence came not from eliminating negative thoughts, but from transforming them into tools for growth. Moving to habit 11, celebrate small wins. In ancient Bhutan, there was a tradition of starting each day by celebrating 5 small things before leaving bed. This isn't just positive thinking, it's neural programming. Every time you acknowledge a win, your brain releases dopamine, strengthening the neural pathways associated with success and confidence. There's a powerful story about Alexander the Great that isn't often told. Before each major battle, he would gather his troops to celebrate their previous victories and small daily acts of courage. The soldier who helped a comrade, the scout who found a better path, the cook who kept spirits high with a good meal. He understood that confidence is built not on rare moments of glory, but daily moments of progress. The Japanese concept of kaizen, continuous improvement through small steps, teaches us that major transformations happen through minor victories accumulated over time. Think of confidence like a mosaic. Each small win is a tile. Individually, they might seem insignificant, but they create a masterpiece together. Here's a practical technique used by ancient Roman generals, the victory journal. Each night, write down 3 wins from your day. They don't need to be spectacular. Maybe you spoke up in a meeting, chose a healthy lunch, or showed patience in a difficult situation. Over time, you'll build a written record of your progress, evidence that you're more capable than your doubts suggest. Remember, the oak that stands confidently against the storm didn't grow overnight. It celebrated each new ring of growth, each new branch, each new leaf. Your confidence will grow similarly, one celebrated victory at a time. Our final habit brings everything together. Focus on continuous growth, not perfection. There's an ancient Japanese concept called wabi-sabi that finds beauty in imperfection. A master potter named Tanaka once created a bowl with a slight asymmetry. Instead of discarding it, he highlighted the imperfection with gold, creating something more valuable than a perfect bowl could ever be. This is the essence of our final habit, understanding that true confidence comes not from being flawless, but from embracing continuous growth. Let me share a profound story from ancient Tibet. A young monk was frustrated with his meditation practice, complaining to his master that his mind wasn't perfectly still. The master poured tea into the monk's cup until it overflowed. "Like this cup," the master said, "you're so full of expectations about perfection that there's no room for growth." This simple lesson carries the heart of Stoic wisdom about confidence. It's not about reaching a perfect state, but about maintaining steady progress. Marcus Aurelius wrote something remarkable in his private journals. Does the sun concern itself with the opinions of shadows? This wasn't arrogance, it was liberation from the pursuit of perfection. The sun grows brighter each day, not worrying about whether it's perfect, but focused entirely on its natural purpose of giving light. Consider the ancient Egyptian concept of ma'at, the principle of continuous balance and growth. The Egyptians didn't see life as a journey to perfection, but as a constant balancing act. Their confidence came not from being perfect, but from getting better at maintaining this balance each day. Think of confidence like the Nile River. It doesn't try to be perfect. It simply flows, adapting to each bend and obstacle, continuously moving forward. Here's a practical technique I call the growth spiral, inspired by ancient Greek architecture. Each day, focus on improving one small aspect of yourself by 1%. Don't try to revolutionize your entire being. Just like the spiral patterns in Greek columns, each small improvement builds upon the last, creating something beautiful and strong. Now, let's bring all 12 habits together in what the ancient Stoic would call the way of unshakable confidence. Remember how we started with that Roman general being reminded of his mortality at the height of his triumph. That wasn't meant to diminish his confidence, but to ground it in something deeper than external success. As the Stoics taught us, true confidence is built from the inside out. Think of these 12 habits as the pillars of an ancient temple. Each one supports the others. When you stop comparing yourself to others, you create space to surround yourself with positive people. When you take care of your body, you have more energy to face your fears. When you celebrate small wins, you build the resilience to accept criticism gracefully. Let me share one final story from the Arabian Nights. There was a merchant who spent his life searching for a magical gem that would give him unshakable confidence. He traveled the world, facing dangers and hardships, only to return home years later without finding it. But when he arrived, his friends hardly recognized him. The journey had transformed him into someone of remarkable confidence and wisdom. The search itself had created what he was looking for. This is the more profound truth about confidence. It's not something you find or achieve. It's something you build day by day, habit by habit. As Epictetus said, no great thing is created suddenly. Your journey to unshakable confidence is a journey, not a destination. So here's the practical roadmap for you to implement these habits. Week 1. Start with self-awareness. And 3. Notice your comparison triggers, self-talk patterns, and reactions to criticism. Week 2. Begin small implementations. 10 minutes of physical care, 1 positive self-statement, 1 small fear faced. Week 3. Expand your practice. Celebrate 3 wins daily, challenge 1 negative thought, and set 1 realistic goal. Week 4. Integrate the habits. Let them flow together naturally, supporting and reinforcing each other. Remember the words of Seneca, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." Each of these habits is a form of preparation, building your internal fortress of confidence. The opportunities will come, and you'll be ready when they do. Before we close, I want you to pause and reflect. Consider who you could become if you consistently implemented even half of these habits. Imagine the quiet confidence you could carry into every situation, not the loud, showy kind that needs constant validation, but the deep, unshakable kind that comes from knowing yourself and continuously growing. The ancient Stoics would tell us that confidence isn't about never falling, but always getting back up. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being comfortable with the questions. It's not about being perfect. It's about being persistently better. As you move forward from this video, remember, you don't need to implement all 12 habits at once. Start with one that resonates most strongly with you. Let it take root. Then add another and another. Like the ancient Chinese bamboo tree that seems to do nothing for 4 years before shooting up 90 feet in 6 weeks. Your confidence will grow slowly at first, then surprisingly quickly. Your journey to unshakable confidence begins now, not with grand gestures or dramatic changes, but with small, consistent steps in the right direction. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." Through these 12 Stoic habits, you have the power to reshape your thoughts, and through them, your entire experience of life. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of ancient wisdom and modern application. If you found value in these insights, share them with someone who might need them. And remember, the most important step isn't learning these habits, but implementing them. Start today. Start now. Your future self will thank you.